And what we come here tonight to do, my intention here tonight, is not to seek to undermine the achievements and accomplishments of other peoples, but to show in very real sense. Not only were we the creators of the Egyptian civilization, but that our equality in the world, the equality of the black peoples of the world, is not built on any biblical fantasy or any liberal sentiment. It is rooted in hard, concrete, historical realities. Because what the Egyptians did, few of us really know how remarkable it is. The Japanese found out recently. The Japanese went to Egypt to build a pyramid. The Japanese took all the conventional wisdom that we had about the Egyptians that had been passed on to us, how they had handmade tools. They were not in the high technology range that we are today, so they built the finest handmade tools to cut the stone that Egyptians cut. Couldn't cut it. They improved it, couldn't cut it. Then they took air jackhammers, high modern technology, to cut the stone. And then they came to the second stage. Now we've used high technology, modern technology to cut the stone, because nothing that we thought could cut stone like that couldn't cut the stone. Diop had made that quite clear, that when they found iron, smelted iron, near the pyramids, they said it had fallen through a crack in the earth. It didn't belong to the pyramid age. That iron smelting was to come much later from the Hittites, who passed it on to the Syrians. Even I believed that. All of us believed that until Diop showed scientifically it is not true. These people had gone into highly advanced iron smelting in the pyramid age. They could not cut those things with bronze tools. So they used air jackhammers. So then they come to the next problem. They saw all of these pictures, and every Egyptologist had said how these Egyptians would have a lot of labor, and they would move these big things and put it on the barges. The Japanese tried to put them on the barges capsized. So they had to use steamboats. Jumping straight back into high technology, they used steamboats. So then they got it down the steamboats, and they got down to the desert. Now you have to lift it and put it in the desert and erect it. When they took the stone off the steamboats, it sank in the mud. When they dragged it out of the mud, it sank in the sand. So they got cranes. The cranes broke. Then they got better cranes, and they lifted it up, and then comes the problem. Put it now in alignment like the great Egyptians. The Egyptians put those stones in such an alignment, they are 1/1000th of an inch accuracy. The only people on earth today who achieve that accuracy are opticians cutting glass. That is how they moved that stone. That is how they cut that stone. The Japanese started to use helicopters. So they used air jackhammers instead of the so-called primitive tools or handmade tools or bronze tools. And then they used steamboats instead of the barges. And then they used cranes instead of all of these big masses of human labor they thought the Egyptians were using. And then they used helicopters. And then they decided they had to let it go. They couldn't do it. And they were not using 50-ton blocks, which the Egyptians put at the top of their skyscrapers. They were using 2-ton blocks of stone, and they couldn't do it. So make no mistake, you are dealing with extraordinary people.
A priest was a man who went into the system of education, which you call the mystery system, from age 7, at the time when he was circumcised and brought in. At age 47, 40 years of training, studying the 7 liberal arts, science, law, engineering, all that goes with it, and he had qualified in each of his degrees, he became known as a priest. So that means that you who spend 4 years for your bachelor's, 2 years for your master's, and another 2 or 1 depending for your doctorate, you would have just begun to study. And you're talking about a long time of study. You would have been there 40 years without ever going to see your parents or anyone else.
The earliest books in the world are African. The Book of the Dead, or rather it should be called the Book of the Coming Forth by Night and Day. The pyramid texts, the Papyrus of Ani. You will hear tomorrow from Dr. Ben the profound impact of those books upon the thinking of the Greeks. Look at the medical literature of the world. They said the clinical method began with the Greeks. It did not. You can read the Edwin Smith Papyrus, Dr. Finch, whom you will hear tomorrow. Dr. Finch has done a commentary recently for the journal on the Edwin Smith Papyrus, showing it is only 1/3 of an earlier manuscript written down in the 18th dynasty by a surgeon in Egypt, and that it only deals with the head and neck and the brain. Yet there are 200 terms. There are 200 medical terms for things inside and outside the head. He said that they discovered in that very early time things which we only know today through X-rays. He said that they found the locus in the brain through which auditory information is processed. They were working on pulse taking 1,000 years before Herophilus, the Greek who was credited with pulse taking.
Herodotus, the Greek father of history, described the Egyptians as black skin with woolly hair. Herodotus also declared that almost all of the names of the gods came into Greece from Egypt. In the mid-1790s, a Frenchman named Count Constantine de Valny published a book entitled The Ruins of Empires, which chronicled his travels to Egypt between 1783 and 1785. Valny's book became an instant bestseller in France and was soon translated into English. Shortly thereafter, an American edition appeared for sale in the United States. But since Africans were still being enslaved in America at that time, the publishers decided to delete segments of the text that might be considered offensive to European Americans. Sentences were deleted from pages 15, 16, and 17 in the original text, including a statement which described the people of Kemet. There are a people now forgotten who discovered, while others were yet barbarians, the elements of the arts and sciences. A race of men now ejected from society for their sable skin and physiqued hair, founded on the study of the laws of nature, those civil and religious systems which still govern the universe.